Hello, folks. It's midday, which means one thing and one thing only. It's time to shake your drawing pins. Do you remember?
I do, but I thought they were I thought they were Tic
Ah,
Tacs to start with, going by the noise.
Well, that's what the advert is, isn't it? Do you remember drawing pins, though? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see them anymore, do you?
Well, you do if you go to a stationery shop and you buy them, which is what I did this week.
But you see, you've got a nice little cork board behind you, haven't you? So obviously you need to be adding and taking away and moving and shaking things around. So they're perfect, essential for your lovely collage behind you.
I thought we'd use this as an illustration at the beginning of today's show, folks, because we're going to be talking about organisation, and you know, this is a tool of organisation, really, if you think about it. But I also wanted to start with a bit of a icebreaker for all of us and the audience. So if you are watching, get your thinking caps on. Can you think of something that we used to use all of the time in the office, maybe to do with organisation, or maybe to do with like clearing your desk or something else or whatever, that you just no longer see anymore? And while you're doing that, we're going to bring our special guest in.
Yes.
She may have some ideas as well. So thank you and welcome to the wonderful Louise Purvis. Hello.
Hi, Louise.
Do you know, I haven't seen a drawing pin for such a long time. You just don't see them anymore.
It's exciting, isn't it? It's actually exciting. There you are. Look at that.
And I didn't know we were going to be talking about stationery. It's one of my favourite subjects.
Oh, there you go.
It's such a favourite subject that Stephen used to work for a stationery supplier, and I used to own a stationery store.
Really?
Oh.
I'm like a kid in a sweetie shop with stationery.
I always remember with drawing pins, there was two ways you came across them at school. One, you came home from school and you looked at the bottom of your shoe and you'd got a drawing pin stuck in the sole of your shoe. That always happened. The other one was some smart Alex stuck it on your chair and it ended up poking you in the backside. It was usually what I always found. That was my sort of engagement with drawing pins at school.
Oh, so you're not keen on them then?
Not really, no.
Okay, I am going to say that certainly when I started work, one of the big organisational tools that we used to have, and virtually everybody used to have, was a Rolodex. I'm really showing my age. Sorry, folks. I'm really showing my age. Basically, a Rolodex system was like think of like a bingo calling system, like a wheelie type thing, right? And it held these cards which clamped onto it, and you used to open this thing and go like that through it, and it had like A to Z, and you found your contacts in there. Amazing.
Oh, with the little index cards.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember those too. So I must be old as well.
And then it got kind of replaced by just like the plastic opening index card boxes with like little index cards, and you know, we used to sell thousands of those little index card boxes. Imagine, no one would ever have anything like that anymore.
But that was before mobile phones, though, wasn't it? Because in a mobile phone, you store everything. You store phone numbers, you store email addresses. You know, you do your emails and all that sort of stuff. That was what you didn't used to have to sort of. Your way of accessing someone's information was through a Rolodex, getting the number. You didn't have to remember it. It wasn't programmed in. You had to manually find it every time, unless you were really good, and then punch it into the phone every time you contacted them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure if you're watching this either today or throughout the week or whatever, do let us know if you can think of something that we used to have that we don't have anymore in the office that used to keep us organized. But here's the big question for all of us. And I'm going to let Louise introduce herself first before we discuss this. But the big question I want us all to hold on to today is we used to have all of these different systems, paper-based systems, card systems, etc. And, you know, we had one item to hold this bit of information, and we had another bit of information over there, whatever. So you'd think that with all of those disparate pieces of, I'll call them semi-technology out there, which were pretty useless, but actually these days we've been much more organized because we can bring it all together, and it's actually most of it all sits up there in the cloud, which for some people I just need to explain isn't heaven. right? Because some people get a little bit confused by that, right? You know, they think like the cloud is heaven, and anyway. But are we more organized than we used to be? Because we should be, potentially, or actually, are we less organized? That's the thing to hold on to and think about whilst Louise introduces herself. So Louise, thank you for coming. Tell us a bit about you.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me on. So I'm Louise. I organise people basically. So I love working with solo business owners, normally creative people who have lots and lots of ideas. But the thing that they find difficult is all the itty bitty bits of their business is here, there, on a bit of printer paper, on the back of an envelope. Everywhere, and I help them to bring it all together and get stuff done basically. So yeah, that is who I am.
Yeah, and actually that must be quite tricky, because just to give like a sort of window into a creative's mind, you know, you'll be there having in the middle of a conversation, and all of a sudden, you know, just that happens, and you know, and they're kind of gone. So yeah, it can be a little bit like that. So let's go back to the question, Louise. Do you think we are more organized these days or less?
I think we're all very distracted individuals because there's so much pinging going on. You know, your phone's pinging, your watch is pinging, your computer's coming up with notifications here, there, and everywhere. I think there is so much going on that we're very distracted individuals, and I think that is making people in general less organized.
That's really interesting. So we're less task focused in general than we perhaps used to be. Yeah, because
I think our level of concentration as human beings has just gone way down.
I think for me, the first thing that came to my mind is the technology and the ability to be more organized is better, but it's offset by the distractions in life have increased. So we're probably about where we were, but we're up in one area and down in the other. As you say, you know, we can have all these fancy tools, and I know you said about creatives and they can sort of go off, but I think even as non-creatives, if we're doing something and the little beep goes off, or the little envelope appears in the bottom of the screen, you're straight there, and it's almost like it's. So I think it's sort of spread to more of us. I think the sort of the non-creatives have become quite easily distractible as well.
Louise, do you think part of the problem is the tools? Do you think part of the problem is that we get distracted by the tools that are meant to help organise? Because
I think we can do. I think, you know, sometimes it's that shiny object thing, isn't it? It's like, I need to set up a sauna because Bob from networking says it's amazing. So then you go to a sauna and you get like sort of distracted by the tool itself, rather than going, do you know what, this is supposed to help me. Sometimes it can hinder you because you go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, a lot of these tools are so powerful and do so much, and actually are really quite clever. And I think there's two things with that. One is that we probably don't use everything that's in there properly, and I'm pretty certain that most people have too many tools, and probably there's too much overlap between all of the tools they've got. So rather than really investigating entirely what one tool does and learning how to do it all in that tool, they're just buying another tool. But then, secondly, we may just need to stick a tool around a certain process, but then what we do is we actually go off at a tangent, because, you know, rather than just complete that process, we then go, it does that, it draws circles. But I can put
you're getting distracted again, Graham.
Do you know what I mean? I can put Father Christmas in my emails, and then suddenly it's like, you know, and you've spent half a day fiddling with this and fiddling with that, and you haven't actually done the work, etc. And that in a way was what was great about old-fashioned ways of doing stuff, because actually the tech was boring. And see, this is serious, right? Can't really do much to make a card index system exciting, can you? I mean, the joy of joys would have been if you got a different color index box that was like neon pink or something, or your cards got laminated at some point. You know, it's I've got different colored cards. You know, and that was about it. That was it. You're not you know, you might doodle on the edge of a card, but your distraction point is virtually zero, really, and all it can do is be an index card. You can't really do much else. You know, you can't connect it up to this widget and make it do that or this. So yeah, I think there's a lot of distraction there. And this is the big topic that I wanted to talk to today about. This is if we don't get on top of our organization, is this causing us wellness problems? Because I think it is.
A big thing is sleep. You know, if you're disorganized and, you know, you've got things popping into your head at 4 o'clock in the morning going, oh gosh, I didn't do that thing, I must remember to do that thing, and then you can't get back to sleep for an hour. You know, there's a lot of my clients come to me and they literally have problems sleeping because of disorganization. So I think that is one major issue.
That's interesting. And actually that kind of sort of was brought out in the conversation we had a few weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah. With a sleep expert who said exactly that, you know, and it's here we go. Olivia said, laughing at, I can draw circles and put Father Christmases in emails. Yeah. She feels seen. Feels seen. Thank you, Olivia. I feel seen as well. I just think there's a lot of us out there that could get very heavily distracted by stuff if we weren't careful. Stephen, pick up yes. on the physiological side of that though as well. Do you not think that then again has an impact on, you know, things like musculoskeletal issues and stuff like that as well? Because literally we are just spending far too long at a computer because we're not organized and we're not working smart.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think as well it can feed into other things. I think that disorganization piece can sort of overcome the fact that people have maybe had to go through some sort of assessment process, but then sort of get out of the habit of taking that advice on board. So, you know, if someone has an assessment, they're given lots of advice about doing this and doing that. But I think sometimes if you're disorganized, the first thing they're thinking is, got to get the laptop open, got to crack on and do this, that, and the other. And they sort of forget all the things that they've been told and taught and should have taken on board, and almost just go back to the old way of doing things. So I think it sometimes I think, and when you speak to people, whether they're assessors or end users, sometimes we can get cut out the process a little bit in terms of they can still not see us as an absolutely essential bit of their day, and therefore we're one of the things that can be put to one side, and they just want to carry on and dive into the work. So yeah, absolutely. I think that whole organization piece is not just in terms of your tasks, but also around your setup and how you work and how you engage with your workplace and your workspace and your colleagues and how you organize your day. And a classic thing is, you know, if you're not very organized, you just suddenly start throwing yourself into tasks, and before you know it, it's 11:30 and you haven't taken a break, you haven't changed your sitting position, you haven't maybe taken some water on board, and all those different things are just sort of forgotten because of that disorganization state that you're in, and you forget that nice routine that you maybe should be working in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true. Disorganized people do not take breaks. No. They're just literally staring at the screen, and like you say, it gets to 11:30 and they've been sitting for so long, they've not gone to the toilet. You know, they've not, you know, had water, like you say. They're just glued because they feel like there's so much to do that they have to just stare at a screen for hours.
Louise, are more of the people that you work with home-based rather than office-based?
Most of them are home-based, yeah. And they will also get very distracted by the things that are around them. So, you know, they'll go in the kitchen to make themselves a coffee and they'll see that the washing hasn't been put in the dryer, or, you know, they'll see that, you know, the Tupperware cupboard, they'll open it up and all the lids will fall out, so they need to organise that, you know. And there's a lot of that goes on, that the home life is kind of distracting them at the same time.
Stephen keeps going off, by the way, to organise
You've
himself.
got man flu, haven't you?
I go because I do have a little bit of a cold, and I don't really think anyone watching, either live or pre-recorded, wants to see me blowing my nose. So therefore, I keep sort of going off, because I think I'm trying to remain professional.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Olivia says this, back to being serious, Louise. Completely agree with you. Being organised is massively important for my well-being. I keep a notebook beside my bed to write my 3 a.m. thoughts down. Now, I'd argue, though, Olivia, is that actually being organised?
Or is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? It sounds like it should be, but in reality, is it a good thing? Because actually, do you become subconsciously know that the notepad is there, and therefore if you wake up you can write those thoughts down? So
yeah,
I can see it both ways.
Any sleep psychologists, I'd love to know your thoughts on that, etc. Louise, what are the main things that you tend to help people with? What are the things that typically sort of overload people, and you can go, oh, just do that and take that off of you?
So I do a lot of kind of like work on people's habits and routines. So I help them to structure the day, because a lot of people come to me, they have no structure. It's like literally get up, switch laptop on, work, stop. You know, there's no kind of life.
And you're right. It's literally that. It's like there's no break. There's ingestion of food or drink is actually a pain in the backside. Going to the toilet is well, it could literally be a pain in the back, but it is a pain in the backside. And as you say, it's literally wake up, turn on, start, and then really have no kind of routine. So how do you start breaking that down for people to actually kind of, and is there resistance as well to begin with?
There can be, because a lot of people will say, I physically can't fit all of these things in. And the way that I do it, not to give away all of my secrets, but I'm like an open book. I don't start with somebody's calendar, because if I start with somebody's calendar, they will literally look at it and go, oh, but I've got meetings there and I've got this there. And I start by saying, how do you want your day to look? You know, what is missing from your life right now? And a lot of people will say, I don't get any fresh air, or I'm not spending time with my children, or I'm not spending time with a partner. So we pop that in first. And so we start with the person rather than the work. And then we look at what's left, and we can fit it all in. You know, when somebody, you know, spends time on their own well-being and you know, goes to the gym or goes for a walk, their productivity naturally goes up, because, you know, you can get way more done in 2 or 3 hours of focused time than 8 hours of not focused time. Hopefully that makes sense. My notebooks away, I might cry.
Olivia, we're not going to take your notebooks away. It's absolutely fine. And I've done it where I wake up in the middle of the night and have to write an idea down. It's just, we were just questioning, you know, is that the best way of doing it? There you go.
Louise, when you're sort of planning people's day, is encouraging people to get up at a certain time and start at a certain time part of what you build in? You know, do some people maybe who don't get up as early then feel as if they're a little bit behind the game when they then do start? So does that sort of build a thing in getting up a little bit earlier and sort of getting in yourself position before the day starts?
Well, a lot of the people that come to me are mums that are going on the school run.
Okay.
And a lot of them don't get started until after the school run. And I don't generally encourage them to get up at like 5, 6 o'clock or whatever and get stuff done before their child wakes up or their children wake up. Just because I know myself how crazy it can be in the morning, you know, get your Weetabix down, you bind your shoes, that sort of thing. You know, it's not really conducive to focusing on anything else. If they want to get up earlier, if, you know, then morning people, because I've got a couple of clients that like to get up at about 6 o'clock and do a couple of hours before the craziness. But I always say, what's your natural energy? Where is your natural energy? Because a lot of people aren't naturally morning people. I know I'm not. And I get started at about 9:30 after the school run. And I can get loads done in that time, you know, in my focus time, whereas I don't really get a lot done. Well, I actually, during COVID, I had to get up at like 5 o'clock and do 2 hours work then because I was homeschooling. And those 2 hours, I could get so much done because I knew I had to. But it just depends on people's natural energy, because some people just, you know, are night owls. Some people like to grab the laptop between 8 and 10 and do it then. Just depends.
You just said two words that sent a lot of us back into a huge amount of fear. There was when you said homeschooling. Those two words in that order. It was like, I thought I'd wipe that from my memory, and it's just suddenly just come back. Like,
so true. Other bits of software are available, but Google Classrooms just became my pet hate. I'm sure it's much improved since, but just really, yeah.
But you know, just sort of thinking about what Louise was saying there, Graham, there's a couple of people we've said in our sector, haven't we in particular? I know Mark Rigby's one of those people who puts a little strap line on his sort of email signature along the lines of, you know, saying about 8 till 10 working, saying my working day may not look the same as yours. Please don't feel obliged to respond to this email. Words to that effect, which I think is I think that's a really good thing for someone to put, because what they're saying is I've got my own organization and way that I work, but don't change yours to fit around me. Because I think that's really important, because what you then find is that organization gets thrown out, because they're then sort of flip-flopping between these people who work sort of different hours and weekends and things that suit their own lifestyle.
That's where schedule send comes in. Absolutely fantastic. On you can do it on Gmail, Outlook, most things you can, you know, use schedule send. If I am catching up on emails on an evening, I tend to schedule them to go out at 9 o'clock the next day. Just so that, like, basically somebody else doesn't, you know, see it ping up on their phone and feel like they've got to reply to me there and then, because they don't.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this.
I could see you itching to
I'm going to play devil's advocate on this, putting that on the bottom of your email, because I think it's a really good idea, but I think it really depends on how the brain works of the person that's receiving that message, right? Because I'm afraid to say that the way that my brain works is, if you've emailed me, it's now prioritized, right? As soon as I've seen it, it's a priority, and I see it as a problem, and I need to deal with it. Doesn't matter whether you've caveated that with, like, oh, don't worry about this. I've already worried about it because I've already seen it. All right. So I think it's really important that people understand that actually that's great that you do that, but it's really important to try and understand, actually, if once you've put stuff out there into the world now.
But that's where Louise's schedule send comes in. Because actually then, is that a piece of technology that I know about it? Because I tend to start early, and I often don't want people to be getting emails from me at 6:45, 7 o'clock when I genuinely start. And I know you, Graham, we exchange messages you're another person like me. But actually, again, a lot of this would come back to technology. Is there a real understanding of what is a piece of basic technology? Because I think most people probably are aware of it, but not everyone is. So again, is it education around software like that would really help a lot of people?
Yeah, because a lot of people that I speak to don't know about schedule send.
No.
And so they would just send the email at 11 p.m. or 6 a.m. And like you say, Graham, once you've seen it, then it's in your head, isn't it?
Yeah. Now I'm gonna throw my little bit of wisdom into the world here. Part of the problem is, and see if you agree with me, part of the problem is that we send emails, right? When actually, and most email clients do this or have this facility, they also have the ability to send tasks. And actually, a lot of the time what we should be doing is sending tasks, not emails, right? And I'll tell you why, right? Because when you send a task within the body of an email, for start, for a lot of people with things like dyslexia, it's really difficult to actually find the task embedded in the email, right? Because they've actually got to find it.
Yeah.
And their cognition doesn't necessarily allow them to do that. Secondly, though, if we use tasks, not emails, not only the other person might now know about it, but tasks, unlike emails, can be weighted with more weight, more gravity, right? They can also be set dates for when people actually want that back. And we have stopped doing that in society, right? We used to be quite good at it, but we don't do it anymore, right? Now, if we actually do tasks set by dates, this takes an awful lot of weight and pressure off of people, because suddenly it's like, okay, you've sent that to me, but I can also see on it, you don't want that until Friday.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's perhaps you can elaborate on that, but I just think that's an important thing. I think part of the problem is we have become a culture where we just try and throw everything off of our chest. So it's not our responsibility anymore. It's the responsibility of the person we've thrown it to. Whereas actually, if we spent a little bit more time owning it in the first place and going, right, and it comes back down to organisation. So if we actually go, here's the project, here's what I need doing, this is where I need all of the bits of that project happening. And now, Stephen, you've got to do this for me, but I don't need that until Tuesday next week. So when you get that, you know you don't need to actually touch that until Monday night at midnight. Do you know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that tools like Trello, Asana, things like that are great, and that's where you can like sort of send your tasks, assign tasks to people, put dates on them. I think there's a lot of people don't trust the task management tools, which is where emails come in. It'll be like somebody will put a task on Trello or Asana, and then they'll send an email saying, "Did you see what I put on Trello?" And I get a lot of that, and I do worry that it's because people aren't trusting those tools to, alert people, or trusting that the other person is using it properly, which is where kind of like training comes in, doesn't it?
I was gonna say, right, this is the biggest problem with a lot of this stuff. We roll it out, all of this technology, so quickly these days. Organizations roll out technology, even individual businesses, they roll it out there, and what don't they do? They don't do any training around it, right? Even if you are a business, solopreneur or whatever, and you use systems with your clients, good question for you here. Do you do any training whatsoever with your clients on the systems that you use with your clients? Bet you don't. Right? Just think how different that would be. If part of an onboarding process with the client would be, right, I'm going to communicate with you like this, right? I had this whole thing with a client. I said, right, before we even start, I want to talk about how we communicate, right? Because I don't actually like communicating the way you do.
Okay. My way or the highway.
Well, yeah, but you have to set those boundaries, right? Because actually, if otherwise, what you get to is they go, "Oh, you keep missing my emails," or you don't send the emails the way I like, or you don't put the subject lines that I like, or you don't do this. And you say, actually, it becomes much easier if you go, "Do you know what? Because of the way that I work and the way that I need to work with my client base, and because it suits my cognition, I need to use this system here, right? I will train you how to use this system here. I will tell you how we're going to use that system there. Like you put stuff in there, I will see it, I will respond. That's how this works, right? But we don't do that, and then we wonder why we're feeling frustrated, disorganized, and why we're then sending a million messages to each other going, did you see? I sent that a minute ago. Did you see? I mean, we're like so paranoid these days that like people haven't seen the information. And it's because like years ago, it was a bit hit or miss when you sent an email as to like the read receipt thing or whatever. Nowadays, like there's a little eye on it. It's like, I know you've read that. Why they've read that? Why have they not responded? I literally, and then you wait like 5 minutes ago. They've had 5 minutes and they still haven't responded. Why?
Is that a little bit like the 2 blue ticks on a certain messaging platform where as soon as it's got blue tick, it's like, okay, where's my reply? You've seen it.
It's instant. It's like we're living in this instant society, isn't it? Where everything is just, if people do read it and that you've got the blue ticks, like you say, why haven't they responded if they've read it? It's like they could be busy,
Thanks, Olivia. Look at that. You see, look, we are coming up with today. We are literally coming up with some absolute genius stuff, and feel free to go and use these things within your business if you want to, but just make sure that you do come and say thank you. That's all I'm doing. Right.
Now, quick question there about tasks. I remember this years and years ago, and this is to say, I think Olivia made a really good point there about, forgetting to use the scheduled mails and all that sort of stuff. I remember tasks years ago within Outlook, but I must admit, it's something I haven't used for donkeys, but actually it's something I should get back into. So again, a lot of this can just be that constant reminder, getting back into the habits. And just as we were talking, I had a quick look on it and it's like, oh, it is still there. I just wondered whether had it actually disappeared. Was this something from, 2008 or whatever, and it wasn't there, but it's still there. And I'm thinking, actually, that might be a better way for me to start organising myself. But I just forgot the functionality existed.
I did some research at one time, and Louise, you'll love this. I did some research actually on the basic package of Microsoft Office, right? And scrabbled around the internet. This is about 6 or 7 years ago now, so the data may be out of date, but looking around at taking Word, Excel, for example, Outlook or whatever, what percentage of the facilities or the functions that are in those packages do you think most people on average actually use? Any idea? It's about 8%.
Really?
Isn't that scary? Right?
I'd have said it would be a lot. I was thinking, my initial figure was, I reckon most people probably use half the stuff. So I was thinking 50.
If you just like later on today, folks, go and do this for me. If you've got Microsoft Office, go and have a look at, just for example, Word. Look at the ribbon. If you turn all of the ribbons on at the top, you probably haven't got all of the ribbons on. You probably got it minimized to like a standard ribbon. But if you turn all of the ribbons on at the top, you will not. You'll blow your mind because you won't realize all of the amazing things that it can do.
I'm a bit worried about doing that because I could just spend forever and a day in there. So is it a rabbit hole I want to go down?
It is a rabbit hole, but also you will be amazed at just what you do not use. Right? You do not use this stuff, and this is. But here's another interesting question for any of you out there. We've all used. I would pretty much say we have all used Microsoft Office at one point or another. Right? Hands up now, who's ever received any training on Microsoft Office? Oh, see?
I have. When I used to work, well, it's years ago, when I was fresh out of university, I worked in another university and I did loads of training. But I don't want to give away my age, but we're talking like 20 odd years ago. No, hang on, I'm not that old. Just less than 20 years ago. So it'll be
20 minutes ago. 20 minutes ago. Yeah.
Don't worry. If we did it, Louise, the number would be a lot higher. Don't worry about that. Or Graham certainly would be anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's two decades ago. It wouldn't cover it. Two ages ago would cover it.
Actually, it's over 20 years ago. I'm trying to make myself younger than I am.
Go for it.
But it's interesting. Do you think? I don't think many people actually do get training on this stuff.
No.
I think the assumption nowadays from businesses
is that you
are to some degree literate. You probably can do a bit of Word, a bit of Outlook. You can push your way around Excel. They're the main ones, aren't they? But it is a PowerPoint. But I think there's probably an assumption that anyone over a certain age, anyone younger, you'd assume they're pretty good at stuff like that anyway. and anyone slightly older, you'd assume you must have come across this and done something in the last 20 years. Therefore, you must be proficient to some degree. But as you say, that 8% is an amazing, is an amazingly low number.
Now, if we've got any people watching who are investors in technology, and you like to put your angel investment into technology and develop new things, here this might be a thing for you, right? Don't know whether this is possible or not, but this may be a thing. But we started to use heat mapping on bodies to look at movement and weight loading, etc., to see whether certain tasks and certain postures are actually too repetitive or bad for you or whatever. Well, think about this. If you do web development, we all know that heat mapping exists, right? Heat mapping is basically where if you're developing a website, you normally do A to B testing. So you have two versions of the website. You put both of them out there. People are beta testing it, and you see, using heat maps, the user journey that people have. It shows you where people have been on the screen, what they're clicking, where they hesitate, where they struggle, or whatever. Most applications, including Office and whatever, are now on cloud-based systems. So effectively, they're websites, and we should therefore be able to heat map them. In fact, I'm sure Microsoft, you must be doing this back of stage or whatever. I would be fascinated to know whether anybody's done any studies out there, or is there something that could be developed that enables companies to see how people are actually using these systems and where they're getting stuck, right? So that they could then implement really decent training. Because I bet if you took 10 people and you put them in an office, and even something like Word, right, or an email system or whatever, across those 10 people, they're all going to use it differently, right? And it's not that we don't want to encourage difference, but if there's someone that's actually taking far too long to do something just because they are not using the tool in the way that it could be used, that is so inefficient. You wouldn't do that with a physical tool. You wouldn't, if someone was like making something with a hammer and a punch or whatever, or CNC machine, you wouldn't stand there watching them go, "Oh, that's all right, Nigel. Yeah, you can take an hour to cut out that simple shape. That's absolutely fine. Oh, by the way, there is a way of doing it in 10 minutes, but we're not going to show you how to do it." You'd actually be right on it, wouldn't you? You'd be there. You'd be like, "Nigel, what are you doing?"
It'd be really interesting to know if companies, when they onboard people now, and this might be more of a sort of a HR sort of question, really, is that something that's still offered? And I suspect in line with that 8% is probably sort of 8%, I guess. But I wonder how many companies offer that, or offer some sort of, whether even if someone says they're proficient, that they offer some sort of refresher piece, because it all ties back. We obviously talk about health and well-being on this show a lot, but it also ties into productivity, as you say. So how many people could speed up what they do and be more productive by being shown? But I think that natural assumption that you can do it could be holding quite a lot of people back.
Yeah. Louise, could this be a natural progression for your business? I mean, obviously you're doing this with a lot of business owners, etc., helping them, prioritize their day, etc. But have you already, or could you actually use a lot of what you know from doing all of that with all of these owners? Could you take this into a bigger, more commercial setting to actually help train managers or people that are, line managers or whatever on the ground, to go, actually, this is how you could engage with people in your teams to find out more about how, what the sticking points are, and then here's some really useful ways of being able to help them be more productive. Could this work?
I absolutely could. I've got my cogs are going. I'm like,
that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I think that would be great, though, wouldn't it, Stephen? I honestly think we need more people like Louise actually going into businesses, because I'm pretty certain that people are just not having these conversations. They will look at it on a much bigger level, but probably, it's not granulated enough and coming down to sort of individual user experience level enough to actually deal with the problem. It's like probably what will happen will be like, right, Barry, what's the matter? Well, everybody over there is taking far long to do that. I know what we're doing. It's obviously that system they're using. It's probably rubbish. It's not fit for purpose. I know. We'll buy a new system and stick it in. This one is much more efficient. So they buy it, they stick it in. They don't teach anybody how to use it. They haven't done any kind of, on the ground, getting any feedback, learning from people what the sticking points are. Here's the police come to take me away.
I was going to
say, and then what are we left with? You've just wasted more money. You've got the same problem over again. It may initially have some benefit, but you'll probably, or at the point when it goes in, there'll be a whole lot of training on that new system. But over time, new people will come in, and it kind of the amount of training, the amount of effort, and the amount of resource put into that will lessen, and you end up with the same problem again. I just think that's what happens in business these days, and I think it's actually a very massive problem, to be honest. So I think we're trying to stick a plaster on a lot of this stuff a lot of the time, rather than actually deal with the problem in its entirety. If you've been watching this, by the way, or you're watching this from wherever you are, if any of this is resonating, obviously we resonated a lot with Olivia today. That's 6-7 messages so far. But if anyone else is watching and they've got anything to say, please do. There is a comment section. You can put something in the comment. Who would you like to talk to, Louise? Who's your kind of ideal client at the moment?
Graphic designers, copywriters, IT people, creatives. Although it's hard to define that, because I think we're all a little bit creative, aren't we?
Well, yes and no. I know actually there's quite a lot of people that are definitely not creative. They think they might be creative, but then you look at the output and you think,
and then they're not.
But probably not. That actually leads me on to an interesting question, and it's going off topic slightly, but it's one that interests me.
That's never affected us before on this show, Graham, going massively off topic. So
no. With AI and other, the sort of what you see is what you get, quite easy in a way to use tools that we've got nowadays. Do you actually think that it does cause a problem in that a lot of people that aren't naturally creative are now beginning to think that they could be creative, but actually it takes one to know one, if you know what I mean? Actually, what's happening is we're seeing a lot of stuff being put out there into the business world, which actually is subpar, because the people that are creating it haven't actually got the natural ability to do it. Just out of interest.
What was the question?
I love that.
Was there a question there?
Have I bamboozled? Yeah, I'm saying, right, it's like the old Radiohead song, "Anyone Can Play Guitar," right? It's true, but how well someone can play guitar is a matter of opinion, right? With things like ChatGPT, etc., anybody could write a post these days. With things like Canva, as opposed to it always used to be Adobe Illustrator or whatever, anybody can draw a picture. But does that necessarily mean, though, that you should? Because actually, there are other people out there that are far more naturally talented, have an eye for writing, have an eye for creating, etc. And in the end, are we ending up with a lot of people putting stuff out there, which actually may be part of the organizational problem as well, because it's distracting them from what they should be doing in their business, not doing all of this other stuff. I'm bamboozling everybody here.
No, I was being polite and waiting for Louise. That was all. So I was
waiting for you.
We could be, this show could go on for hours if we just both sat here waiting for each other to answer it. I think my thought with that is the risk is you become, and I think this is where you're going to with this, Graham, is the risk is that people maybe become a little bit of jack of all trades and master of none. So it gives people the idea they can do all of these things, and they do more things less well, where actually there's still that requirement for specialism. You know, if you suddenly said to someone, right, write me a post on LinkedIn, but you've got to do it in handwriting, you've got to write it out. That's the ultimate test, isn't it? You know, someone, as I say, can put something into ChatGPT or whatever and pump out a piece of material. But actually, if you said to them, write on a bit of paper and all hand them in, that's where it becomes totally different, doesn't it? So that's where, as you say, I think the problem is people really, where they can, should try and specialize, focus on what you're really good at. And if we all do that, it's really, really useful. If everyone just became mediocre at everything, we wouldn't really get anywhere, would we?
Mm.
I think this whole subject of AI is just, it's a can of worms though, isn't it? We could talk about that all day. It's like ChatGPT, I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's helped so many of my clients who have problems with starting, you know, or have problems with like dyslexia, for instance. A lot of my dyslexic clients use it to write, you know, a post and then put it in and ask ChatGPT to tidy it up and, you know, sort out the grammar and the punctuation and spelling, you know, that sort of thing. But it's dangerous in that, like you say, we can pretend to be experts in something we're not. And I'm using the we as like a human being thing. You know, we have to be very careful, I think, how we use it. And I see so many people just copy and pasting directly from ChatGPT, and I say people, you can tell because of certain words like elevate and the last line is always like, let's
elevate, foster, thrive, rocket, all of these things.
All the emojis. You can see a mile off, can't you?
I wouldn't describe myself as a creative, but I'm organising an event for early next year. So there's an online organising tool that I was using to put this together, and I have used. And it gave me the option of AI writing the sort of the blurb on the event. And I read it, and my first thing is if someone I know who I work with saw that, they'd instantly know it wasn't me. So I scrapped it, and it probably took me a lot longer to do something that was a lot shorter in terms of the number of words, but it actually felt more authentic. I myself looked at it and thought, no one's going to believe that I've come up with that. No one.
Yeah. Because we all have our own style of writing as well, don't we?
I was doing a website for someone earlier this week, and they won't mind me saying they're dyslexic, and they have a particular style of writing, and they sent me over sort of a draft piece, and I looked at it and I thought, shall I improve on that, or actually shall I leave it as that? And actually in the end I left it entirely as that. Right? Yeah. Some mistakes and all, right? Because it depends where that's going and what that's meaning to do.
Yeah.
And if you're putting it in a place where it's meant to create authenticity, and it's meant to, you know, make you feel like you're going into that person's world, it needs to sound and feel like that person. Now, if they get lots of feedback back like that, you know, oh, this word's spelt wrong, we just thought we'd let you know, that's actually great, because that means people are actually engaging with it.
They're actually reading it. They're actually reading it.
And that's absolutely fine. And that, in a way, that's kind of beta testing it and whatever. And I think sometimes we've got to put imperfection out in the world to do that. Interestingly, I put out a piece yesterday, which was me having a conversation with a musician who's also a writer, and he also writes for a lot of the newspapers like The Guardian, etc. So he's quite a, you know, a decent purveyor of words, and but we were having this chat. One of the things that I think is always missing these days from a lot of social media posts and whatever, that the ChatGPT cannot do this, folks. It just cannot do this. Is storytelling, right?
Yeah.
But storytelling that's actually based on memories and actually based on activity. And that's why I've always said, right, if someone comes to me and they start going, well, what is it that I need to be putting out in terms of content on social media? I go, right, the first thing I need you to do is have a busy life. The first thing that I need you to do is be active and do stuff, right? Because when you go and do stuff, when you make things happen in the world, right, then you've got stories.
Yes.
And when you've got stories, you can then tell those stories. And when you tell stories, people will actually come closer to you because they relate to those. So I think, I digress slightly, but I do think that that's important. I don't think technology is going to get there quite yet. But yeah, talking about one last piece of organizational AI, I just want to get your opinion on this, and then we shall leave it there for today. Is AI that imitates us completely. Now, I started playing with some of this yesterday. I've had a little play with some of it before, the sort of technology that creates an avatar of yourself that then you can use in sort of training videos or whatever. But there's some newer versions of this, which if you train them with video, it actually really looks and sounds like you.
That's scary.
Really, really looks and sounds like you. So much so that I actually saw, let's see if you can find it, saw a post by someone on LinkedIn yesterday that wasn't that person.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was their cloned version of themselves. Right. So AI is getting there. Now, do we think that this will actually take off? And do we think this will start having an impact in terms of people's productivity? It's entirely feasible that in 3 or 4 years from now, versions of ourselves will be having Zoom meetings with other versions of other people for us.
I'm thinking about that, and it's hurting my head. I'll be honest with you.
My mind's just blown.
Yeah. I'm not sure this is a Friday afternoon sort of thing I want to think about. I think my brain, it's just like, it's hurting my brain to think about it. So does that mean that we no longer will be doing this show, Graham, in 3 or 4 years? We'll just have clones of us doing it.
Well, here's the thing.
And what will we be doing?
Here's the thing. Right. This is where I think this is the most authentic thing that you will ever get on any kind of social media or whatever, because in order for this to happen, we have to react in real time to each other in terms of a conversation. That's going to take years. It might happen in our lifetime. Don't think so. But it will take years for AI to get that clever, right? But bearing in mind that quite often, if you think about Zoom meetings, folks, that you go to, or Teams meetings, how often does someone just sit there and go, yeah, oh yeah, whatever. I don't think it'd be that long before we have versions of ourselves that will sit on a Teams meeting and do that, and maybe react to the odd question. I don't think that will be too long.
Okay.
All right. It'd be interesting to see. And what will the fines be like for anybody that gets caught doing it? Do you remember, just to give people a laugh at the end of the day, did anyone remember, or did anyone see the kind of Instagram reels of the guys that went on to a Zoom meeting with their boss and all tried to pretend that they were sort of frozen and whatever? Did anyone see that?
That sounds hilarious.
You've got to see that. They to try and get out of this meeting, they all kind of pretended that the signal had broken and whatever.
Right.
And they were like sat there like that and whatever. And the boss one by one goes, Gary, I can see the fan going round in the back. Dave, the cat just jumps into your room.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one by one. Someone opens the door at one point and goes, "Come and have your lunch." And it's like, and he's still like,
It's still frozen.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's so
folks, That's been a great conversation.
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
As many laughs as there are. Great points today, which is always great. Louise, it's been a pleasure meeting you today and talking about that. Folks, think about it. Are you organised, or are you actually wasting parts of your day? Are you struggling to get enough time to go out in the day, prioritize a moment with family, even eat or go to the toilet? It's quite scary, actually, that as a thought. If the answer to any of those is no, I'm a complete nightmare, then maybe you want to get in touch with Louise. Maybe you might want to start thinking about some of the things that we talked about today. And when we communicate our things with tasks and other things that we want done with other people, stop making assumptions. Think about how that person on the other end might be feeling as well. It might be keeping them awake and making them write in their notebook at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So maybe think about giving them a bit more instruction in that as well. Maybe telling them, I don't need this until this time next week, all right? Just take the pressure off of each other a little bit more and be a bit more kind, maybe. It all helps. I'm going
to spend all afternoon sending people tasks out of Microsoft. It's just like, now it's back. I'm just going to be sending them out left, right, and centre. So I can apologise in advance to any of my colleagues. You're just going to get some random tasks sent over just to see how it works.
Can I just say, I actually, with several people in a major bank, I actually implemented that for members of staff that had dyslexia, right? You telling managers to use tasks rather than email, and it actually saved most of those people about an hour and a half a day. That's massive.
It is
massive.
And also great fun on a Friday afternoon.
Absolutely. Just remember, when you send tasks, to prioritize them or put an end date on them.
Yeah.
And if you're going to use task management systems like Asana, Trello, whatever, lots of other ones are available, you don't need to send an email as well. They've got it.
Yeah.
They have got it. And if you don't know whether they're getting it or not, just do the training in the first place. It's just, once they know how to use it, it's fine. We will be back same time, same place next week. We know that because we're going to pre-record it. So that, you see, because that's called organisation. This one
well organised.
This one was live. Next week it will be pre-recorded.
Well, next week it will be live. It just won't be streamed live.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
It's like when you buy that live album and you think, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
How is it live? I've just bought it. Until next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.